Hi, this is Elaina Love with Pure Joy Culinary Academy, and today I'm going to cover level 1 knife skills with you. There's a lot of knife skills you'll learn while you're at the academy, and this is what you'll learn in the first week that you're here, actually the first day of the training. We're just going to show you some basic vegetables and best ways to cut them. So let's start with my favorite vegetable today. We're going to start with the bell pepper. So this is a red bell pepper. We usually don't eat green bell peppers because they're unripe, so you always want to get a yellow, a red, or an orange bell pepper. You can tell by looking at this that it's nice and ripe and good even color all around. There's no green on it, so it's going to be a really sweet and tasty pepper. There's a lot of different ways to cut a pepper, but what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be cutting the pepper for the purpose of sushi, using it in sushi, or using it for dipping like in a hummus or a cheese. So I'm going to show you the best way to cut that. So we're going to start today with the 8-inch chef knife. I always keep my chef knife in a case because when you're traveling, or even if it's in your drawer or it's somewhere around the kitchen, it's just a much safer way to keep it. And the way that this case works is it snaps on and off. So I would just keep it right in there like this. There's 2 rubber pieces that keep it in place. And then you would snap it into place and then it can't come off. I can put it in my luggage. I always travel with my own knife. And once you get really good at cutting and you're comfortable with your own knife, you're going to want to do that too. So this is a Mac knife that I'm using today. And the Mac knife is my favorite of all the knives because it's really thin. It's a molybdenum steel, which means it's really strong. So you're not going to break it or chip it unless you're trying to cut like coconut shells or something. For the most part, it's going to really hold up for you. And I like it because it's lightweight. So you want it to feel good in your hand. This has a wooden handle, so you want just basically a knife that feels good all around. I don't like to go any smaller than 8 inches with the chef knife because if you do a 6-inch knife, you'll see later that it's harder to really get a good cut while you're cutting with a long knife or a short knife. So this is a good length. So one 8-inch chef knife is going to be kind of really all you need to do most cutting, which is good to know. You don't have to buy a whole arsenal of knives, just one knife. The other thing we want to do before we start is we want to prep our cutting boards. So as you can see, I have just 2 nice wooden cutting boards. You can use wooden or plastic. I really do like the wooden better because it's more natural. I'm not getting plastic in my food. And also you can just bleach these or put lemon on them and put them out in the sun, hydrogen peroxide, and so you're going to get all the bacteria out. And I do that usually once a week, somewhere I put the boards up. What I want to do before I start is use a wet sponge or towel or one of those mats that you put under rugs to keep them from slipping. I'm going to put that under my boards because otherwise when I'm cutting, it could be unsafe and the boards could slip. So now you can see that since that's wet, the board's not going to go anywhere. So I'm probably just going to cut on 1 board at a time instead of 2. I'll start on this side. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the pepper, and we're going to lay it on its side and just cut both ends off to make a nice square looking flat pepper. Don't throw these away. These are great for salad dressings and we can use them for other little bits and bobs later. What I want to do once I've cut the ends off is I want to cut one side like so, and then I'm going to cut around in a circle to get the inside out. And then this piece just all gets thrown away. So then you're left with one nice big beautiful piece of pepper, which is great for cutting for sushi. What I'm going to do now is just flatten it out. It's going to make it much easier to cut. Now I could cut with the shiny side up, but I want you to listen a little bit when I'm cutting, and you'll see that you can kind of hear it cutting, like it's a little more work for my knife end to cut through. It still makes a beautiful cut. If I turn it the other way and have the rough side up, it's a little bit easier for my knife to grip it. So what I'm going to do when I'm cutting is I always want to you want to have a good stance. You want to make sure your posture is good, especially if you're going to be working in a kitchen and cutting a lot. And you want to keep the tip of your knife down. You want to keep your hands curled out of the way, kind of like a C look. You're going to use your thumb for pushing, so that can be to the side. And you're just going to keep your tip down and slide forward. So it's a sliding forward motion. And just go slow at first, and the better you get, the faster you'll be able to go. And you just get beautiful. Now I could cut it bigger. If I wanted, I could leave it this big if I'm making this for dipping in sushi. Obviously, or not sushi, in pate. If I have pate, this isn't going to work for dipping, right? So I want a piece that's solid enough that I can really scoop with. So it really just depends on what you're using it for. So this would be a crudité, and these would be for our sushi, which we're going to be rolling on the first day of class. So let's put all this on our tray. Make it look beautiful. So we call it mise en place in your kitchen, which means everything in its place. It's a French term, French culinary term. And so when we're doing food, we want to always keep our board neat, we want to keep our surfaces neat, and we want to put our vegetables in a way that looks beautiful so that when we go to make the sushi, everything's organized. Organization will make you so happy in your kitchen, I promise you. So, okay, that's the pepper. And you always want to think of colors. So today I've picked a variety of colors to put in our sushi. So the next thing I'm going to do is the carrot. This is a beautiful, perfect sized carrot. The little skinny carrots are a little harder to work with. So when you're buying a carrot, look for one that's a good medium size. You also want to make sure it doesn't have big cracks in it because those are usually really old carrots. Sometimes they've been around for 6 months to a year. I'm in Bali now and I know these have been picked really fresh, so this is perfect. I'm just going to cut both ends off. The one thing about carrots that you can see is it's rolly. So that's kind of considered unsafe to be trying to cut something that's rolling. So the first thing we want to do is just cut one side off of our carrot, and then we have a nice flat surface. This piece you can just put aside. So now that I have a flat surface, I want to cut this carrot to a size that's workable, which is about that length. I would say that's probably about 4 or 5 inches, okay? And I'm going to put this over here. The other thing I have here is a knife sharpener. So before we start the carrot, because the carrot's a little bit, of all the vegetables, it's one of the harder ones. So we want to make sure our knife is really sharp before we start. So what I use is a roll sharp. This particular brand of sharpeners, the Fiskars, is recommended for the Mac knife. They recommend it because they know it keeps the knife really well honed. So what honed means is that it's really sharp, and when you're running your finger across it, you should kind of almost feel like sandpaper. If it feels smooth, that means that the blade is not sharp at all. So, and the real true litmus test for this is to try and cut through a pepper or a tomato. And if you're not getting a really easy cut, like a knife, one knife should cut through a tomato. You don't need a serrated blade. If you have a sharp knife, you just need one good sharp knife. So we're just going to put this through the roll sharp, and it's basically just a back and forth rolling motion. I usually do it about 20 times, and then I'll just make sure that tip's done really well and the back end's done well, so I get all parts of it. Then we want to make sure we always clean from the back, not the front, and get any little shards of metal off, because that'll end up in your food if you don't wipe it off. So just wipe it really well and get those shards off. So now that that's done, I can go ahead and start cutting my carrot. So since I'm going to be using this carrot for sushi, I want it to be square. So I'm going to go ahead and do a matchstick cut for you. I'm going to cut all 4 sides off of this and make it into a nice square. Now don't worry about wasting, because we have a really great red bell pepper dressing that we use in level 1 that includes red bell pepper and carrots. So any of these scraps we'll be using in our dressing. So you can always put these in a dehydrator and make them into a powder, or you can save them for your soup or your salad dressing. So there's always something to do with the ends. Okay, now that I've got a nice square looking carrot, I'm going to cut it. I'm going to keep my fingers out of the way, that's very important. And then I'm going to cut it into nice, super thin planks. And the thinner you cut them, the better, because I have kind of a pet peeve about getting veggie sushi, and they put these huge chunks of carrot in, and you bite into it, and all you get is a crunch, big crunch of carrot, and the whole thing comes out in your mouth. So really with raw foods, it's all about texture. That's one of the most important things to learn when you're making raw foods, is thinness, subtleness, softness. So look at how thin my carrots are. Isn't that beautiful? I'm going to just probably stack only about 4 or 5 at a time. And we're just going to get in there and get a nice thin cut. So again, the finger is back, tip of the knife down, and I'm going to do a nice thin, this would be called a matchstick cut. I can go thicker, and it could be more of a Julienne. So the word Julienne comes from French. There was a woman, this is the story I heard, named Julienne, who would come in and always want her vegetables cut really thin, so it became the Julienne cut. So there we go, we have beautiful thinly cut carrots, which will be perfect for our sushi. So some chefs like to cut everything really fine, other chefs use bigger chunks of things, and so you become unique in your own way by how you cut vegetables. But you also want to send a message when you're making your food and preparing it for people that you really care about them, and you care about your food, and you care about the presentation. So all of that comes into play when you're cutting. It starts with the cutting, it starts with being present as well. You know, people that cut themselves usually just are not present, or they're thinking a negative thought, or they're off in Wonderland thinking about something else. So whenever you're in your kitchen, you want to really be in your kitchen, be grounded, and, you know, use safety, use smartness. We got the cucumber next, so we're gonna go ahead and cut this. And the other thing I want to say a little bit more about knife safety is when you have a knife, and we're gonna be in a group of a lot of people in the kitchen, you always want to keep your knife down by your side. And if you're walking through a kitchen or you're walking to wash it, you want to just say, I have a knife when you're behind people. So that's really important just to make sure for safety. You never want to be walking through a kitchen like this, or even like, oh, I'm going to go to the sink now, and like you've got this board that could, you know, the knife could flip off. I've seen all kinds of crazy things. So we're really, you know, strict about making sure that you're very safe with your knife. You keep it down by your side and you tell people, I've got a knife, there's a knife coming through, you know, so you can have fun with it. Okay, so next we got a beautiful Balinese cucumber here. And I'm gonna cut this to the size that I want before I even get started, which is about, that's a good length for, I just think about what would go in a sushi roll, that's a pretty good length. And what we wanna do with sushi is we wanna cut, we want to take all the skin off first. And having a good peeler is pretty important, because if you have a dull one, I think it's that way with your knives, with your peelers, with anything you're using in a kitchen. If you don't have the right equipment or the right tool for the job, you're just not going to enjoy it that much. If you have really dull knives or if you have a really old peeler, you're going to find yourself being a little bit frustrated. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to look at the cucumber and see what the size of the seeds are. So these ones aren't real big, so I might be able to get away with, again, I'm going to make one flat surface. I might be able to get away with just cutting straight through it. Now with English cucumbers for sure, you could get away with this. I think this one might be a little bit seedy. So what I'm doing, as you can see, is I'm holding on both sides of the cucumber because cucumbers can be a little bit more slippery. And I'm just gonna look through it now. Yes, that is very seedy. So we're just gonna take those out. We're gonna take those seeds out of the middle. And I might even just cut that whole seed bed out by cutting one slice. This can go great in your juice, so you can use this later. But that wouldn't really be appetizing in a roll, would it? It's kind of gritty and grainy, so we're gonna get rid of that one too, okay? We just want the nice solid pieces. So maybe when you're buying your cucumber, if you're definitely using it for sushi, you wanna try and find an English cucumber or something, not a real big fat one that you know is gonna have a lot of seeds, something a little on the more delicate side, okay? When I'm scraping, I always turn my knife over and scrape with the back side so I don't dull my blade, because you just spent all this time sharpening your blade. And then again, we're just gonna cut a nice thin cut and get some nice strips for your sushi, okay? Beautiful, looks delicious. Now we've got our 3 colors lined up. Let's see, so what else could we do with cucumber? We can also use cucumber to cut into slices. So for this, I don't need to bother taking the seeds out, and I really don't need to peel it completely. I might want to just cut it in stripes, just because, I don't know about you, but when I bite into a big piece of cucumber round and it's not peeled, kind of the skin gets stuck in your teeth a little bit. So I find that if you stripe the cucumber, it's a little more appetizing. Again, this is all about mouthfeel. So we're just gonna wipe our board down, make sure it's beautiful and perfect and clean to work with. Okay. So what am I going to do here? I'm just going to cut it into nice rounds, like so. And this is good for, we just had some hummus for lunch before we started today, and I made some of the raw hummus, zucchini hummus, and we ate it with cucumber rounds, which is a perfect balance. If you've got something nutty or seedy, a nice vegetable for dipping it in is perfect. So look at how beautiful that is. What I love about raw foods too is the color. Look at those colors. Is that amazing? I just love how fresh they are, how crispy, how crunchy. So again, keep all that in mind when you're shopping. The fresher you can get your foods, the better. Luckily here in Bali, I have a farmer right down the street. He's a 5-minute drive on my scooter, and I can go and have him cut it right off the vine, and we're eating it within an hour or 2. So that's living in an ideal world if you're growing your own vegetables. But of course, we just want to do our best wherever we're living. Okay, so we've done our cucumbers, we've done our carrots, our peppers. Let's next move on to what's called a chiffonade cut. So this might be something you would use in your sushi roll if you didn't have sprouts, and you wanted a little bit more bulk. So we would be rolling the sushi in a piece of nori, and we have all these beautiful vegetables and some avocado, but maybe we just need some more bulk in there. Or maybe we want to cut these actually are not kale leaves. I wonder if you can guess what these kind of leaves these are. Again, I got this from my friend Har from his garden. These are broccoli leaves. So I'm actually going to make broccoli chips instead of kale chips today. So I bought about 30 of these leaves, so we're going to test that out later. But I want to use them also to show you how to chiffonade. So we're going to stack about 4 leaves here, and we're going to roll it into a nice tight little cigar-like bundle. And I'm going to turn it this way because I'm a lefty. And then I'm going to put my tip of my knife down, and I'm going to angle towards you guys so you can see what I'm doing. And I'm keeping the tip down the whole time. It's almost like a paper cutter. You can see I never pick the tip up. And I'm sliding forward with my knife. So it's a down motion and then a sliding forward. So slide, slide, slide. I don't know if you can see that from where you're at, but again, it just takes practice. I'm going to go slow again just to show you the motion. So it's always down, then slide forward, pick up, pull back, down, slide forward, push forward, pull back, pick up, and then eventually get it all cut. And so chiffonade means ribbon. So this is great for basil or mint or any of those really delicate herbs that you're using. But it also, like even if you wanted to do a kale salad or a broccoli leaf salad, isn't that beautiful? Look at that, that's ribbons, cut into thin, thin ribbons. Again with our textures. Okay, so let's put that on our cucumber plate and make a beautiful little pile in the middle. I love just making things look beautiful. It's so fun. Big part of food. Okay, let's clean our board off again. And I'm going to see what else I've got on my plate. Okay, so now we're going to cut our beautiful avocado. This is a Balinese avocado. And any of you who are avocado lovers out there know that wherever you are in the world, there's going to be different kinds of avocado. The ones here are a little more watery, sometimes stringy. It's really hit and miss. And when I order them, I'll get 10 different kinds in a box. Some are black, some are green, some are small, some are big. In California, we get the beautiful Hass, and avocado, you get the bacon that are like rich and creamy. So again, just the luck of the draw, but we're just grateful to get any kind of avocado. So when you're cutting an avocado, the first thing you want to think about when you're buying an avocado is make sure that little circle is still in there. Because if it's not, that's where mold can start to grow. So a lot of times you'll buy an avocado and it's already halfway molded down. So since you're spending quite a bit of money on avocados, you want to make sure that it's as good looking as possible when you buy it. Preferably buy it unripe so that you can ripen it at home so there's not 10 thumbprints in it already by the time you buy it, because you know people squish it when they buy them. Alright, so then what we're going to do is we're going to cut to one side or the other of that little knob on top. Just press straight down and around in a circle. Okay, and then to get it apart, you just do a twist. And it looks like we got a nice looking avocado here. The skin decided to stay behind, but that's okay, I'll just peel it right out. And I've got gorgeous, perfect, this is my ideal looking avocado, so that makes me happy. Yeah, there's no way to check the inside before you buy it. And then to get it out, I didn't really get to, but usually you hit it like that and then you twist it and it'll come right out. This one's just wanting to come out on its own. And again, we're going to take that inner skin out. Okay. And so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to check to see how peelable my avocado is. This one's pretty peelable. Look, I can just peel the skin right off the back. It looks like it might be sticking a little bit towards the end because it's a little overripe there, which is fine. We still have a lot to work with, which makes me happy. And another way that you can do it, so if you don't peel it, you could also slice it right in the skin, but be careful because your knives are going to be really sharp when you buy a new knife. So you want to make sure that you don't cut too hard or you'll cut right into your fingers. So this one I cut a nice thin slice, and then I'm going to use my spoon, a nice thin edged metal spoon, just to scoop it out. So we want to cut it thick enough that it'll be good in a sushi, but not so thick that it's too big, somewhere in the middle. Alright, so these are perfect. It's a perfect thickness. I'm happy with that. It's gorgeous. So because I took this one out of the skin before we started, I'm just going to cut the end off that I don't like, and then we're just going to cut this into nice, beautiful pieces for our sushi. Okay? There we go. Beautiful avocado. This would be great in an avocado salad, on any kind of green salad, or in your sushi rolls. Let's see, I've got tomatoes next. This is fun. So with tomatoes, we're going to use tomatoes for a lot of different things. And again, like I said, it's a true test to know if your knife is sharp, and I can feel it's pretty sharp, to cut through a tomato really easily. So this is a Roma tomato. We get a lot of these kinds here. This is perfect for cutting for gazpacho soup. It doesn't have as many seeds. But what I want to show you is how to de-seed a tomato, because if we are doing a delicate dish, maybe even a salsa, we don't want all that water in there, so we want to get the seeds out. So I'm going to cut to one side of that little stem in the middle. So it's just one cut. Then I'm going to do a V cut on this end here, like so. 1, 2. That's it. And your stem's out. And you've got the perfect tomato ready to go. So to get that the seeds out, the best way is to cut what I call a smile. So start on one side and then make a half circle with your knife, okay? So I've got a little smile. Can you see that? Hello! And we're just gonna take our thumb or our finger and put it behind the middle, but you're not gonna pull that part out. You wanna leave that in. You wanna just get the juicy, wet liquid from behind. So I still have a nice pulpy tomato, lots of flesh, but not all of that juice that I don't want in there. And then to cut our tomato, so let's say we're going to use this for gazpacho. Again, a flat surface is best, so I want to lay it down on its tummy, and then just do some nice cuts like so. This could be for gazpacho, this could be for salsa, this could be for a pasta dish that you're sprinkling tomatoes on the top of. And then once we got it that way, we can cut it again, thinner strips the other way. And then put it all together. This is important to stack it all together like so. And then I can just turn it to one side and cut through it nicely. So hooray, this means my knife is sharp. It cut well. Again, when I'm picking up my food, I don't want to use this blade side. I want to use the back side of my knife to put it on my plate. And make a nice little stack of tomatoes there. Okay. All right, what else? So what's good? What else is good in sushi? Mango can be really nice, especially if you're doing like a fruit sushi. You could do mango, avocado, cucumber. Those are all considered in the fruit family, and the mango makes a really nice flavor in your sushi. So a few different ways to cut mangoes. One would be to peel the whole thing first. If it's firm like this one, you can do that. If it's really juicy, you don't want to do that. So I'm going to show you a couple different techniques for this. The first thing I'm going to do is just cut one side off. So you can tell by looking at the mango, there's a wide side and there's a narrow side. So I'm going to think about the wide side, and I want to cut 2 planks. So I want to cut a plank from this side, and I'm going to feel the seed with my knife. And if I feel it, I'm going to kind of curve around it, and then I'm going to get a beautiful looking piece of mango like this. So I love doing this for kids, is you take the half of the mango and you score it into squares. And this is a really fun way to serve it. It's beautiful and it's fun to eat. It's actually easier to eat because you don't have to get skin, you know, you don't make a mess. Okay, so once I've scored it into perfect cubes, then I just push, and look at that. Is that beautiful? It's like a little armadillo. Kids love that. And you can put it on a plate for them, and there's their little snack. Okay. If I wanted to get this out, I would flip it back in, and again use my metal spoon. It's really important to have a few of these good, nice, sharp metal spoons around, like mise en place, ready to go in your kitchen when you're doing food, so that you can use them to scoop things. So I'm just going to use the sharp edge and go ahead and scoop it right out of the skin. And this is a perfectly ripe mango. So I'm going to need to do a little bit of finagling here because some of the skin came with it. Okay. This would be a great salad like this. You could do it with avocado and cucumber chunks as well. Put a little nice Asian dressing on there. Serve it over a bed of lettuce. I don't know about you, but I'm hungry, so that sounds delicious right now. Okay, so let's put that on our tray with our colors. Look at all our colors. Yay, colors! And then if I'm making it for sushi, I'm going to want to peel the mango and cut it into nice slices. So we're just going to use this peeler to take all of the skin off. And I find that doing it this way actually saves a lot of the flesh of the mango, because normally mangoes, you know, they're kind of on the expensive side. And when you get mango season comes, you want to make sure you get every bite you can. Plus this just makes it prettier when you use your peeler. Having a little bit of a hard time right there with the skin. So just do your best you can to get all the green off. If it's not cooperating, then you give it a little cut. And voila! Look at that. So gorgeous. So the skin of mangoes can sometimes irritate people. It can irritate their mouth and you can get a rash. If you're one of those people that reacts to mango, it might just be the skin you're reacting to. So this is one good way of just making sure you wash your mango really well first and then peeling it before you work with it. And then maybe even after you peel it, wash the mango again and wash your hands if you're very sensitive, and you might not react to mango anymore. It might just be the peel you're reacting to. It's always good to know the little tricks. Like if you're someone who's really sensitive to nuts, it might just be that you need to soak them and you're fine. I know a lot of people that thought they were allergic to nuts, but once they started soaking and sprouting them, they weren't. Okay, so now I've got this nice mango. It's really nicely peeled. I'm gonna just, again, I showed you before, but I'm gonna cut the plank off one side right around the pit. So now I've got the pit in the middle, the hard part there. And then again, I can cut the two little side corners. People always love to be around when you're cutting mangoes. Why is that? Because you hand them this beautiful little pit that they get to eat all the little mango flesh off of. Okay, so now I've got this gorgeous slab of mango to work with. So if I was going to cut this for sushi, I would want to make sure the edge looked really nice first. I might even want, I don't know if you can see this from your angle, to slice it into 2 pieces. So I have a top and a bottom. And then just, again, use your fingernails if you've got them. You want to keep them short, but have a little bit of a nail bed. And then I can slice this into perfect sushi slices for sushi. Look at that. And I couldn't have bought a better mango if I tried. I didn't actually buy this one, but the person that picked this out did a really great job because it's got nice, perfect little Julienne strips and they're nice and firm, but I can tell that it's flavorful and ripe. Okay, gorgeous, gorgeous. So that goes on our mango sushi plate. I want you guys to get a close-up and just really see this plate, how gorgeous it is. Is that awesome? I'm so excited to make sushi. This class isn't a sushi class, so it's just a cutting class, so you'll have to learn that later. Okay, so the last thing I see on my tray today is an onion. Now, I don't normally use onions in sushi unless it's a green onion, but I do want to make sure I cover this today because we will be cutting quite a few onions. If you're making food of any kind, you're going to need to know how to cut onions. So this is just a nice brown onion, pretty fresh. It's got a little bit of a skin on the outside, and I'm going to show you how to cut that off. So you've got your stem side, you've got your root side. You want to cut the top stem side off. That would be the part that would be growing up out of the ground. And then you've got a nice open end. Then I always leave the root side on. It's a little easier to work with. And just cut one little, just really lightly cut into one side of the onion. And then you can peel that skin right away. See that? Really easy. Now this is a fresh onion. I love working with fresh onions, not old onions, because usually they don't have that hotness that makes you cry. If you are worried about really tearing up while you're cutting onions, a couple tricks. One is you can refrigerate it first because when it's cold, it just doesn't have as much of an impact. And the other is you can run it under water or even just peel it and then soak it in some water for a while. And a lot of that, whatever that chemical is that makes you cry, will kind of get soaked into the water. Okay, so those are a couple little tricks you can do. Okay, so the first thing is you'll notice about an onion is it already has its own rings. So we're going to work with those rings, and what I mean by work with them is we already know that they've been cut circularly by nature. So I'm going to work in the opposite direction, and again I want to just cut one end off so I have a nice flat surface, and then I'm going to keep that root on because that's going to keep my onion together, and then I'm going to just go through with my knife and cut it into strips. Okay? And this is the best way to keep yourself from crying as well, is to keep the onion as little exposure to the onion as possible by keeping it all together. Okay, so if it's all together like that, you're not getting all this, you know, whatever that is that comes out of the onion that makes you cry. And then you can cut the other direction. And so I'm cutting it into little, basically little squares before I even start. Then again, tip down, and I'm just going to come straight down on that onion and cut it into perfect squares. What would this be good for? It would be good for salsa. It would be good for anything like when you're stirring onions into a dish. I just made better than beef taco filling the other day with red onion like this, and you want little minced onion in your, you want a little texture from the onion. Onion really gives things flavor. You don't always want to blend it. So having good texture to your onion is awesome. So So look at that. Look how easy that was for me to cut a whole onion pretty quickly, no tears. I can't really even smell it. And then I'm going to do a fan cut. See how one end's down? And then I'm using the back of my knife to go in a fan. And that is going to help you get an even smaller cut, and it just helps you have the most coverage on your board. Remember how at the beginning I talked about an 8-inch knife? This is where you're happy you have a little bit longer knife, because if I had a short knife I would have to work a little bit harder. So there we go, I got perfectly minced onions, which I can now use wherever I want. Throw it on my salad. Good stuff. I'm going to put that into our beautiful plate here of goodies. And I have one last thing to show you today. This was a quick class. You'll learn a lot more when you come to the academy. I'm going to show you how to chiffonade basil, because basil is so delicate. Anybody who's worked with basil knows it turns black pretty quickly, right? Because the knife bruises it. So we want to be really careful when we're cutting basil, and we want to stack our basil leaves. So I've got a few leaves here, some little leaves that Har cut for me from his garden today. And again, I could do this with mint as well. So I'm just going to take 3 or 4 leaves and stack them together. Same size leaves is nice to do. And you know, when you're making your food, when you're in the kitchen with your leaves or whatever food you're using, give it love. This food is about to nourish you and become part of you. This food is going to be you later. So when you're making your food, really think about that. Think about who you're making it for. You know, your parents, your friend, your lover, your children. Think about them enjoying it, even as you're cutting. So again, tip down, I got it rolled up, and I'm just going to thinly slice. I'm not going to do more than 1 cut in each spot because I don't want to bruise it. And then I'm going to end up with these perfectly ribboned little leaves, which would be so pretty on top of a salad, or even in your sushi. You could, if you want, if we're doing spring rolls, which we're going to do on our first day as well, you can put those in there, the Thai rolls. And you have a beautiful leaf to go with that. Any questions? I'm sure you'll have lots of questions when we see each other in person. But for now, we've got quite a few beautiful foods we've cut today, and I'm really looking forward to seeing you soon at the academy. And in the meantime, practice, practice, practice! See you soon.